question of the day: what is porn addiction? Let's talk about it. Hey, 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 Charisma here. Welcome back. If you're new around here, hello. What is porn addiction? Now, according to verywellhealth.com, approximately 50 to 99% of men and 30 to 80% of women consume porn. Sex researchers Alvin Cooper has suggested these high rates are due to the triple A engine effect: accessibility, affordability, and anonymity. According to a survey by the Kinsey Institute, 9% of respondents who view porn had tried unsuccessfully to stop. American Psychological Association says, is pornography addictive? What constitute a normal amount of porn consumption varies from person to person, making it difficult to define dysfunction. Now, pornography addiction is not officially recognized in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, but many researchers consider pornography consumption dysfunctional for some people. Other terms suggest including sexual compulsivity, hypersexuality, uh, deregulated pornography use, problematic pornography use, and compulsive sexual behavior disorder. So, today, before I jump into this episode topic, today is our 100th episode. And this is an amazing milestone that we've reached here on the show. And I wanted to bring you something very dear to the heart of many men, especially who may be struggling with pornography, and women as well. And today I have on the show a very special guest. His name is Joshua Shea, and he is going to delve into this topic and really bring some amazing insight to help you. So, thank you for being along the way of this podcast, being part of this audience, being part of this family. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Now, welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you very much for having me. Congratulations on 100 episodes.
Thank you so much. Now, share a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I am currently a full-time certified pornography addiction coach and a certified betrayal trauma coach. So I deal with both sides of the coin when it comes to pornography addiction in a relationship. Probably on the pornography side, 75% of my clients are men, 25% are women. And then on the betrayal side, it's more like 95% women and 5% men. So
Okay.
that's what I've been doing full time now for about the last 3 years.
Okay. Awesome. So, what's wrong with looking at pornography?
Well,
Just for those who
in
don't
and
think
of
there's anything
itself,
wrong.
yeah, in and of itself, nothing.
Hmm.
We can look through history. As long as there was a piece of charcoal in a cave wall, people have been drawing depictions of sexuality. If you look at ancient and medieval pottery, there's some X-rated stuff painted
Hmm.
on the side. It's very understandable why people are interested in depictions of sexuality, especially around the time of puberty. But what we have found is, especially in the last 25 years, with the advent of high speed internet, the accessibility to hardcore material is so strong that it's causing a chemical reaction in many people's minds that goes right in line with several other forms of addiction. And people are recognizing, often in a short amount of time after it's too late, that they can't stop using this stuff.
Hmm.
And with the way that we're raised in society to look at sex as taboo, look at nudity as taboo, there comes a lot of shame, there comes a lot of embarrassment with this. So communication is poor about this. So right
Right.
now we've got this, I don't want to say epidemic, but we've got this major problem brewing sort of just under the surface of society because, as you mentioned in the top, there are a lot of people who watch pornography.
Yeah.
According to the latest statistics I saw post pandemic, 91.5% of men who use the internet look at pornography at least once a month. 60.5% of women, or I'm sorry, 60.2% of women who use the internet look at pornography once a month. And why are people looking at this? Usually it comes along with self satisfaction or self pleasure, and that causes arousal of the mind. And that arousal of the mind is very much like a drug high. You are
Mm.
releasing chemicals like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin. And for many people, especially the youngest people among us, this becomes a coping technique to deal with trauma, to deal with stress, to deal with anxiety. It's not really even at the core necessarily about naked people doing naked things for them. It's the feeling in the mind that
Mm.
it gives them. That's where this addiction comes from. Now, if you're using it simply as a sexual surrogate, if you're using it simply as an aid in your self pleasure, there is nothing inherently wrong with it if you don't have issues on the moral side, if you don't have issues on the ethical side when it comes to how pornography is made, how it's consumed. For most people, much like people who drink, much like people who gamble, they can handle it. They know how to handle it in moderation. And while it certainly isn't a healthy thing that's going to improve your health, it doesn't hurt most people. But right now, we're looking at about 1 in 5 people who are qualifying as a porn addict. And to me, if 20% of people are dealing with an issue, it's an issue that needs to be talked about.
Right. So, how does one know that they've crossed the line into becoming a porn addict? Like, when does that? How do you know that you've become addicted to it?
Well, it's really like any other addiction. Addiction is addiction is addiction. For
Mm.
me, I was a porn addict for 24 years. I was an alcoholic for 22 years. I've been clean almost 10 years now. Addiction is when you partake in an activity or a behavior or a substance, and despite understanding that there are negative ramifications for it, you still feel like you have no control over using
Mm.
and understand that this is probably going to end badly.
Yes, yes. So what would you say is I know you touched a little bit on some of the stats of the state of porn addiction in the world today as you've worked with clients, you're quite aware, you've really hands-on in terms of, seeing it firsthand with your clients and in the world. What would you say the state of the world is?
I would say that we are really divided into two camps right now. And I think that the break is right around 40 years old, maybe a hair older. It's really between the people who don't remember a world before the internet and the people who grew up without the internet. Those who grew up without the internet, you see such lower rates of pornography addiction. Most of them have no idea about the online porn culture that exists. We're talking about things like OnlyFans or these cam sites, just how prolific it is. And then you get into the younger age group where everybody knows somebody who's making porn and selling it of themselves online. Um, People talk about porn openly because the younger you get, the more prevalent it is to be using it. Societies, whatever the taboos or whatnot that existed in society when I was growing up, or even more when my parents or grandparents were growing up, largely have dropped. And
Mm.
you see a younger base of people who don't have the hangups, don't have the taboos about sex and nudity, which allows them to utilize this stuff with less of an issue of their conscience. Unfortunately, with less of an issue of their conscience, and it now flowing through every device we have. I mean, every 11-year-old is given the greatest
Mm-hmm.
porn computer ever invented with the smartphone,
Yep.
and we're not giving these kids, we're not giving these young adults any information about what this can actually do to you. And as a for instance, I'm in my mid 40s. 25 years ago, when I was 20 years old, the erectile dysfunction rate of men my age when I was 20 was 2 to 4%. Now it stands at anywhere from 18 to 22%, depending
Wow.
on who you talk to. That's only 25 years. What is causing this? It's pornography. So
Mm.
pornography is creating some issues in this world that we're still not talking about, because it all goes back to the fact it's naked people doing naked
Mm-hmm.
things. And despite the fact that far more of us watch regularly than don't, we all still like to pretend it's not happening.
Hmm. And we're not aware of the effects, health effects.
Yeah.
Especially, would you say there's more because there's more men watching pornography, the health issues that come along with that is more relevant or prevalent in men as opposed to women?
Well, when it comes to something like erectile dysfunctional issues, yes. But
Hmm.
when you're talking about things in society, such as, for instance, in pornography, there was a college that studied the top 100 pornographic video clips on two of the largest websites. They found that 97% of these video clips showed some kind of aggression, whether it be physical or just vocal, towards from the man towards the woman.
Hmm.
97%. So
Wow.
this school, this college, then went and asked college age females, when you have been in a consensual sexual experience with somebody for the first time, has it ever reached a level of aggression that you weren't comfortable with? And 40% said yes.
Hmm.
And I've actually found this when I've gone out and after I learned this stat, I've gone out and I've done speeches and I've done presentations at colleges. And I've learned that there are a lot of women out there, young women, who do not want to have sex with virgin men because they know those virgin men have got their sex education from pornography. And those of
Wow.
us who have been in normal relationships, healthy sexual relationships, we know what you see on the pornography certainly isn't reality.
Yeah.
Pornography is not a documentary. Pornography is not
No.
a show. Um, so ultimately, we need more education out there. We need more
Hmm.
education of what this is doing to people. We need more education of what the medical effects can possibly be on people. I mean, it's addiction.
Yeah.
Addiction is a disease.
Hmm.
It changes the chemistry of the brain. If you look at addicts' brains under CAT scans, what you're going to see, if you look at a porn addict's brain, is almost the exact same brain as a cocaine addict's brain. That's how
Wow.
strong the pull towards pornography is. It's like a cocaine high. And ultimately, what we have to recognize is that people are not addicted to watching people have sex. People are not addicted to nudity. The reason that all these people are using this is because it gives them a great chemical high.
Hmm.
It makes them feel good. It makes them forget their anxiety. It makes them forget their stress. It allows them to relax. But it is incredibly unhealthy. You should be putting much that those chemicals in those toxic amounts into your brain. It's just not healthy. And we've known this now for 20, 25 years. And thankfully, people are finally starting to talk about it.
Wow. That is incredible. Like you say the comparison between a cocaine addict's brain and it's the same for a porn addiction addict's brain. It's That's incredible. Wow. And what would you say, how did the COVID-19 change the landscape of pornography? I
Well,
mean, it's obvious, right?
it was the
Where
greatest
people were
thing that
home.
could happen for the porn companies because
Hmm.
all of a sudden you are stuck at home. And for people who are younger, who go out and date or who are, socially active, now everybody's stuck at home. You also, and you see the numbers of people who are consuming pornography in some countries, places like Italy and Spain and France, the year to year usage from before the pandemic and after more than doubled. It
Wow.
wasn't that high in the United States, but in the United States, we saw something else. And I wrote a book. My third book that I wrote is looking at pornography and its growth during the pandemic online. I don't think that the ultimate legacy of the pandemic is going to be what it did to people watching porn. I believe it's going to be about people making pornography.
Mm.
Because when we went into lockdown, who got furloughed from their jobs first? Service workers,
Yes.
waiters, waitresses, retail workers, hostesses, this kind of thing where you have an interact. Usually you're young, you have an interaction with the public, you have to care about your appearance. And when all of these types of things shut down, many of these people had nowhere to turn, nowhere to
Hmm.
look for the kind of money they needed to make. And again, because of the taboos surrounding sex and nudity having really eased over the last couple decades, a lot of these people turn to the internet
Hmm.
to start doing do it yourself porn. And when I was writing my book at the very beginning, I talked to several models who went onto OnlyFans or onto these cam sites who said, I'm only doing this for the money. I'm only doing this while I have to. I'm going to try to keep it PG or maybe PG 13 rated. I just need to make some money. And inevitably, when I got back to them 6 months later, as I was finishing the book and doing doing the final bit of research, so many of them, it wasn't about the money anymore.
Hmm.
So many, especially some of the younger women, that's where I saw this the most,
Wow.
was I can't get a date in real life, but suddenly I have men from all over the world telling me how
Wow.
special and how beautiful I am. I had there
Tension
was
and
there was one woman who was talking about how she'd only been on 6 or 7 dates in her life, but she'd had 3 men propose to her since she started doing this. And what I heard from these women, and to be fair, there were a few men too, what I heard from some of these models who only joined the online porn world because of the pandemic, what I heard was they were doing it for that hit of dopamine, for that hit of
wow.
oxytocin, for all the reasons that people are consuming porn. Many of them were making pornography. And many of them were honest with me that I'm not making as much money as I thought. The average OnlyFans model only makes $180 a month. They were doing it for different reasons, for the high, for the attention. And I really wonder about some of these people, where are they still going to be doing this in 10 or 15 or 20 years? Not because they like the $200 that comes during the month, but because they crave and need that attention so much.
Yeah.
We don't know what the fallout is going to be with these people
Hmm.
because it's only been a few years since the pandemic reared its ugly head. We're going to have to wait another 10, 15, 20 years and see what the true fallout is. But I wonder if we're going to see a world where there are 50-year-old cam models who are doing this, barely making money, but just doing this because they so deeply need the attention. They need the positive reinforcement from the few people who are giving it to them.
Yeah.
That's what
Wow.
I ultimately worry about the most. I think that creating the online do-it-yourself world of pornography is what the pandemic is going to be remembered for.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, I believe there's about 70% of the actual creators on OnlyFans are women,
Yeah,
which
I
more
would be
than men.
surprised if it was that low. I know that on January 1st, 2020, just as we were learning about the pandemic, there were 300,000 creators on OnlyFans.
Hmm.
3 years later, January 1st, 2023, when we got through pretty much the pandemic by that point, there was 3.1 million creators. So just that one site alone, we now have 2.8 million more porn stars than we had at the beginning of the pandemic.
Before.
And that's only one site. So
Yes.
I'm very worried what this is going to do, since we're only 20, 25 years into studying pornography addiction as a phenomenon. What's it going to be like? And this is studying the consumers. What's it going to be like when we have millions and millions of producers out there? How is
Mm,
that going to affect them in the long run?
exactly. And it's usually a ripple effect. I mean, affect them,
Ooh.
and then it affects the children, and family, and it sort of
Well,
affects
when I was
general
when I
society.
was growing up, when I was in college, we there was the Girls Gone Wild video series. That was the big thing. If you go to spring break or you go to Florida, don't make sure you don't end up on Girls Gone Wild. You don't want your kids finding out about that.
No.
And I honestly don't think that it's going to be that big a deal that people have nudes out there in the
Mm.
next 20, 30 years, because so many millions of people do. I'm sure on a playground right now, there is some kid saying, "Your mom does OnlyFans,"
Oh
and the
yeah.
other kid, "Your mom does OnlyFans." I don't think it's going to be that big a deal in that it
Mm.
ruins someone's life that they have a nude out there. But I wonder what it does to their brain over the long haul.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, right now we are seeing, and I've seen many, current and ex OnlyFans models talking about they can't get a real date
Mhm.
because the interested men in them see their information online, and men don't want to share their woman in that way with the world.
No.
So
And
right
if you
now,
have one that does, is there something wrong with him?
yeah,
It's
I
a catch
mean,
22.
I
You're
know.
damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
So why should any of us non-addicts, porn addicts, really care about pornography
Well, like I
or
said,
porn
first,
addiction, I should say?
first, we're talking about the idea that 1 out of 5 people now technically have this. This used to be the problem of the straight white male. That's
Mm,
because back in the day, that's who pornography was made for. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, first part of the 90s, it cost a lot of money to make pornography, to edit it, to distribute it, to have it shown in theaters or make videotapes. It was very expensive, and the porn companies could only trust that the straight white male would spend the money on this. But
mhm.
now, with the fact that we have the internet, with the fact that standards of what passes as a movie is so much
So,
lower,
well,
you can target people of color, you can target people of religion, you can target women, you can target whoever you want and still make a buck. What
mm,
I've seen in only 3 years of doing this pornography addiction coaching, I see the rate of women coming to me double every year. And there's no sign of that stopping. I think that give us another 10, 15 years, this is not going to be the straight white male problem. This is
mhm,
going to be, if you have genitals, this is going to be a problem for you. It's going to be a problem for whatever demographic there is. It's just
mhm.
that it was targeted in that certain direction so long. So, why we should care, number one, is that it's going to affect all of
Help
us
us, yeah.
sooner than
Absolutely.
later.
Mhm,
And it causes sexual dysfunction. We see, so like I said earlier, with young men with rates of erectile dysfunction 1,000 times what they were 25 years ago. We know what this is doing to people's brains. We know that if you look at statistics among people in their late teens and their 20s, we're having less sex now than they were going all the way back to the 1940s. Kids
wow, yeah,
today, or not kids, but young adults today, are having less sex
sex, yeah,
than their
especially men,
parents, grandparents, or great grandparents were having.
yeah.
That has to do with pornography. It's
Mhm,
causing a rift in intimacy. It's causing a rift in how we get along with one another. Because
yeah,
when you can just stay home and experience sex with your own hand and this mind-blowing
Right.
high that's similar to cocaine, well, why are you
Why?
going to spend money to go out on a date with somebody you're not even sure you know, you're not even sure you want to be with?
Exactly.
So there's, and then on top of that, what we're also seeing, and this is why I have also moved my practice into this area, is the betrayal trauma with
Hmm.
so many partners, using pornography behind their partner's back, lying about it, saying that they're not doing it, and then almost always it's the female partner who finds out that her husband, her boyfriend, has been using pornography behind her back. And for many of these women, they consider it just as bad as if it was physically cheating. So we're
Mm.
seeing this wave of trauma hitting the world at this point
Wow.
because, again, we're not talking about this and we need to start.
Yeah. So is porn addiction ever your partner's fault?
Oh, never, never.
Mhm.
And that's the number one thing that a woman dealing with betrayal trauma wonders.
Mm.
There's usually three steps to it. And the first step is, oh my God, what did I do? What did I
Mhm.
do wrong? What changed? Am I not pretty anymore? Am I not wild enough in bed anymore? What changed that he had to become an addict? Well, spoiler alert, it's nothing. He was an addict long before he met you, most
Right.
likely. But you see that what is wrong with me is the number one question that
Mm.
happens. Number two is, oh my God, he's been lying to my face forever. What
Mm.
in the what can I ever trust that he's told me?
Mhm.
What can I ever trust that he will say moving forward? When this is discovered, it absolutely destroys trust. And then perhaps the worst part of it, and this is absolutely proportional to how long the relationship's been happening, is what do I do now? If you've been dating a guy for a month, you don't like pornography, you find out he's using porn, you just don't date him again. But
Mhm.
what if you've been with him for 15 years? What if you have two kids and a mortgage? And if you just pulled the divorce trigger, well, neither of you could have the life that you have on one income because everything's so enmeshed in your
Right.
two income family. What do you do now? Do you push him for help? Do you
Hmm.
ignore it? Do you just get help yourself? You know, what do you do at this point? And these are the real components of betrayal trauma. What's wrong with me? How do I trust him? And what do I do now? And that's a
Right.
real heavy burden for someone to have to face who ultimately is the victim who didn't cause the problem.
Right. So what would you say to partners like that who've caught their or discovered that their partners or life partners are porn addicts? What would you say to them?
I
Or what
urge
do you
them,
say to them?
well, I urge two things. First, find out where your betraying partner's head is at when it
Mm.
comes to stopping or
Mhm.
recovering. Most of the time, there is a porn addiction element to this. It's not just a casual user. I would
Right.
say that's only 1 out of 10 times I end up learning he's just a casual user. Usually,
Mhm.
he's a porn addict. Does he want to get help? Does he want to fix himself? Does he want to go through the process of recovery? And on top of that, what are you going to do for yourself? Because regardless of what he does, this is causing such a toll on you that you need some help. Because if you're hit hard with betrayal trauma, I have found 99.9% of the time dealing with my clients and talking with others who deal with betrayal trauma, this is not the first trauma. This is
Mm.
just a matter of this is the latest trauma from yet another person who you thought was supposed to be close to you, probably going back to your childhood, who has betrayed you. And
Right.
what you have to do if you're going to get through this, much like somebody who's an addict who is using their addiction to mask the pain of the trauma that they're going through, you have to
Mhm.
go back and deal with that early trauma and
Mhm.
develop the coping skills that somehow eluded you when you were younger. Some people don't develop addiction. They just get through life and are tough as nails and white knuckle it. Some people have their addiction as a poor coping method or a maladaptive coping method to deal with the ills of the world. But at the end of the day, whether I'm dealing with a porn addict or whether I'm dealing with someone with betrayal trauma, it comes down to what has put you in this state of mind to begin with,
Mm,
because we have to go back to the beginning and find out where are these roots, what happened, and process it the right way, process it correctly, because it's clear 30 years later, doing nothing didn't help. That's
right.
what you get usually with betrayal trauma. Or 30 years later, addiction didn't help. That
Hmm.
trauma is still there. And
So there.
trauma is just a fancy scientific word for saying pain that hasn't gone away,
Right.
lingering pain. That's all trauma is. But you have to get rid of it if you're going to move forward and be a healthy person.
Hmm. So, what would you say the person in your practice of all the clients that you've seen, what is the response when a partner discovers that the partner, the other partner is being doing have this addiction? Do you find that they're receptive to getting help, or they sort of like become defensive to
It's you
being
see you see three things, and it's almost divided into thirds. One
open?
third are like, "Oh my God, thank God you found out. I don't have to have this secret anymore. Can we please get me some help? Let's do whatever we can. I can't bear this anymore. This is a horrible sickness I have. Help me." Then there's about a third who are like, "Wait, no, 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 I'm fine. Everything's good. Not that."
Mm,
And given a little bit of time, they recognize, okay, the curtain's raised. We can see there's no
mm,
Wizard of Oz. It's the guy behind the curtain. You have a problem. And they do finally, after a little bit of prodding, get into the recovery world to mixed results. And then there are a third of men who, for whatever reason, whether it's pride, whether it's fear, simply refuse to believe that they have a pornography problem, refuse to believe that looking at pornography is a problem, don't care what their partner thinks about pornography or looking at it, and just take a very hardline stance towards it.
wow.
Um, you really see right across the gamut all three things happen, and that's why I say you've got to confront, because you
Yep.
may have a guy who's just been waiting for someone to confront him, who
Right.
wants to get better. That's who I was when it finally, I was a porn addict 24 years. I was an alcoholic 22 years. When I finally ended up getting confronted by my wife and family and friends in a very makeshift intervention, um, I sat there and I remember I sat down first thinking, well, screw all of you.
Mm.
Screw all of you. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. And I remember thinking as they were talking, I wasn't even really listening to them, to be honest. Um, I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm at the end of the line here. My life is going to go one of two ways. I either can take my porn and my alcohol and try to create a new life, try to create something else, or I can get rid of the porn and alcohol that I know are huge problems, that I knew were ruining my life. I can try to get rid of this with the support of these people who love me and try to save these relationships that I had been destroying for so long. And at that point, when I recognized, okay, go off with the stuff that's making you sick and just let it make you more sick, or finally stop, because all of these people know anyway, it wasn't a hard choice for me. I
Right.
wanted the people. I wanted to get better. I wanted to get healthy.
Mhm.
Thankfully for myself, as much as my wife and my family, I was in that third that was glad I was finally found out.
It was probably a relief in some way. Your
Huge, huge.
Yeah.
And it was one of these things where I sat down. The final straw was that I owned one third of a publishing company. We made several magazines in the Northeast, and I ended up getting fired by the other two-thirds owners, who were just silent partners. I ran the company day to
Wow.
day, but I was running the company into the ground, and they fired me. And it was the next day that this intervention happened. And
Mhm.
I realized my professional life as I knew it was over. Did I want my personal life as I knew it to be over? Or
Mhm.
did I want to try to save it? And yes, while I recognize that, oh my God, my life is going to be forever changed once I got fired. And once I sat down for that intervention, as it went on, I said, wait, but my life could be forever changed. And
In a good way.
here I am now. I'm 2 months away from 10 years of sobriety. And I can tell
Congratulations.
you, in my mid 40s, I feel so much younger, healthier, happier, more content without these two things in my life in my 40s than I ever did in my 20s or 30s. It is better on the other side of this. And I'm just so grateful that whatever that little momentum kick was, whatever that first push was, I followed it. And thankfully, here I am now trying to help people do the same thing.
Wonderful. And that's an amazing milestone that you're going to be reaching very soon. So that's amazing. And then you've also turned that around, helping others with the same problem. Do you find that well, in your practice, what is the percentage of relationships that do survive with a partner being a addict?
If people come to see me, and if both the husband and the wife, or the boyfriend and the girlfriend come to see me,
Hmm.
90% of them survive, at
Okay.
least working with me. I
Right.
can't say for others. I can say that, and that's one of the things that I let them know is that if only one of them comes to me, I work with that one. I will help you with your porn problem, or I will help you deal with the betrayal. We'll get you to a better place, whether that is together or apart. When I work with both people, I know that at the core, they want to stay together. So we have to find a path for them individually to heal, but also to heal as a unit. And like I said, I one of the things that I'm also trained in is in therapeutic disclosures. And that is
Okay.
a very arduous process where all the
Hmm.
truth of what happened over the years comes out, which is very necessary for some of these relationships to move forward. And while it is a rough process, I think I've done 28 or 29 of them now, and all except two ended up staying together.
Okay. Wow, that's an amazing success rate that
And
you
it's
have.
it's it's not me, it's
Yeah.
them. It's
Well, yeah,
they're
of course.
deciding they want to stay together.
Right.
It's they're deciding that they're going to do the hard work. They're going to have the hard conversations. Unfortunately, there, like I said, there's just a third of these guys out there who, for
Hmm.
pride, fear, both, just won't face the reality of what's happening.
Hmm. And porn addiction is such a, as we've discussed here, a very, it can be very detrimental to the individual and to partners and so on. But what can we do now with the advent of internet and pornography being at the fingertips when a child has a phone? What can we do to keep our kids away from
Well,
porn?
I think that we have to start to lay the groundwork very early.
Hmm.
And we have to recognize that kids, these are not 16-year-old teenagers who are trying, don't do this. A 5 or 6-year-old kid wants direction. A 5 or 6-year-old kid wants to learn. A 5 or 6-year-old kid usually wants to make mom or dad or the teacher happy. So I think that if we give some very age appropriate lessons
Hmm.
as they grow up, we can make a big dent in this. For instance, at 4 or 5 years old, you can leave it as simple as you don't ever let anybody take a picture of you when you're in your underwear or you're without your clothes, and you don't ever
Yeah.
take a picture of anybody when they're in their underwear or without their clothes. And then maybe when they start school, you say, some of your friends may have a phone or may have their tablets, and they may have pictures of naked grown-ups on there. Well, that's not good for kids to see. So if you see this, please let me know, or please let your teacher know, because that's not healthy for little kids to see. One of the things that I, tell parents is that this speech of, be wary of pornography is not the birds and the bees speech.
No.
This speech is much similar to the here's why we don't drink when we're kids in this house.
Mm.
Here's why we don't smoke when we're kids in this house. When you're 18 or 21, you can make your own decisions, but right now in this house, we don't do this because
Hmm.
it's not good for you. And I think you can get a little bit more technical and a little bit more, shall we say, graphic as a person
Right.
gets older. And I think if we were to talk to every 12-year-old boy and teach them about porn-induced erectile dysfunction, a 12-year-old boy is already watching pornography, according
Yeah.
to the stats these days. Now, a 12-year-old boy, for the most part, is not looking to have sex with a woman. They want a girlfriend. They want a girl whose hand they can hold. They want a girl that maybe they can give a little kiss to. But
Hmm.
if they don't have that, they will go for pornography because that can satiate their needs. And what
Right.
we have to do is let these 12 and 13-year-old boys know, hey, guess what? 3 years of this, 4 years of this, 5 years of this, every day after school. The average kid between the age of 11 and 18 watches about 2,500 hours of pornography now. Well, we need to let them know that much pornography can
Wow.
break your penis. And
Hmm.
I bet if we tell 12 and 13-year-old boys, if you do this, there's a good chance it breaks your penis. And when you have a broken penis, girls aren't going to want to be with you.
That's a good way of putting it.
You know what? Hey, it's called it. Maybe it's scaring them straight, but it's scaring them with the facts of what
Yeah.
can actually happen.
Happen.
Because most, probably 70% of my clients are in this younger internet generation, and of the males, almost all of them have experienced some form of porn-induced erectile dysfunction, be it
Wow.
just them using. More often, they're fine with pornography. They can achieve erection, they can finish. It's
Hmm.
when they get with their girlfriend or when they get with their wife,
Right.
that's when they start to have the erectile dysfunction problems. That's when they see that it's, oh my God, I shouldn't have been doing this,
Hmm.
because they've caused enough brain damage that they constantly need this new stuff every day. And there's so much porn out there, you don't have to watch the same stuff twice. And most
Wow.
people don't watch the same stuff twice because they get a bigger jolt from new
Right.
imagery. So if you're getting a jolt every day from seeing dozens or more new images, what happens at night when you're at home and
Hmm.
you see your wife or your girlfriend naked for the thousandth time?
Hmm.
Or you go to have sex with your girlfriend or wife for the thousandth time, you're not going to have any
Yeah.
surprises. You know how that movie ends. And
Yeah.
what you do to your brain at that point is you destroy it to the average everyday kind of lifestyle that those chemicals were initially reserved for.
Hmm.
I've
Hmm.
had couples who literally have to have pornography on in the room if he is going to function in a normal way sexually.
Really? Wow. That's
And
sad.
I, to me, the best way that we can deal with this, and one of the reasons I'm out there doing this, is education.
Hmm.
Education is going to be the thing that fixes us, not Viagra, not
Hmm.
trying to outlaw pornography, because that will never happen.
Nope.
But education is what will work. And if we can teach kids, okay, here's the way the world is. When my father was a little kid, he remembers doing air raid drills and hiding under his desk in school because the Russians were going to be dropping the bombs. And I don't know how the desk was going to save them, but they had these drills. We
Yeah.
don't do that anymore. The
No.
world's a different place. And I'm sorry that we're now in the 2020s. You have to teach your kids about pornography, but that's the world we face. And if
Yeah.
you don't teach your kid about pornography, like a lot of parents won't, a lot of parents just put filters on their kids' phones or put blockers and send them out and say, okay, good luck.
Hmm.
We need to have conversations with our kids about this stuff. And it doesn't have to be graphic. It doesn't have to be embarrassing. You and I have been talking about 40 minutes now.
Yeah.
It hasn't got graphic once. It
Yeah.
hasn't got X rated once. It doesn't have to. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to.
Yeah. And do you find that it's part of the school curriculum when it comes to pornography and the negative effects of that
There's
for
nothing
kids?
there at this point.
Nothing.
There's nothing
Wow.
there at this point. We have health classes. We have hygiene classes. We have whatever you call them, home ec classes, wherever you are.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think if they talk about drugs, they talk about alcohol, they talk about these other addictions. If they would just spend 1 45-minute period talking to kids about this stuff, I bet it would make a big difference. I bet it would make
Yeah.
a huge difference. And you could say, oh well, if it only drops the rate of porn addiction down 3-4%, big deal. Well, big deal. We're now talking about millions of people. And we're talking about millions of people who will have millions of partners.
Hmm.
This is going to explode very soon if we don't do something. Uh, Prior to the pandemic, the scariest statistic I throw out there, and this statistic's now about 7 years old. There was an organization called the Barna Group that did a study for Covenant Eyes, which is a Christian anti-porn organization, and they interviewed hundreds of men in the U.S. And they found that in the 18 to 30-year-old male group, almost 33%, so that's almost one third, said that they either had a problem with pornography, thought they were developing a pornography addiction, or had a full blown addiction to pornography. That
Wow.
was 7 years ago, before the pandemic,
Could you imagine
before
now?
TikTok took over, before Snapchat took over, before OnlyFans existed.
Mm,
1 out of 3 guys thought they had an issue with porn. You're going to tell me that here we are 7 years later and it's not worse? Those 30-year-old guys are now 40-year-old guys, and pretty
yeah.
soon they'll be 50, and pretty soon they'll be 60. And if statistics keep going the way they are, the people who are coming up now, the kids now, it's just going to get worse
Yeah.
until we actually start to do something about this.
Wow. And if someone part of one of my audience or any of my audience are listening and they are struggling with porn addiction and this come to this realization, I need help. How can you help them? Where can they find you? And what would be the process for them to reach out to you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is thatcorncoach.com. Even though porn is everywhere, we're still not allowed to say it on social media. So
Yeah, I
we
know.
have to use the code word corn, which I'm sure bothers all kinds of farmers in the Midwest.
Mm.
But we have to call it corn. So you can find me at thatcorncoach.com. And I'm also on TikTok, Instagram, and Clapper as that corn coach. Um, and I have created a new community uh, for the partners of porn addicts who are struggling. And that is called the Strive Betrayal Trauma Community. And you can just drop me a note and I can let you know how to join that if you're dealing with the other side of the coin.
Amazing. This has been a fascinating conversation about something that's really, really, prevalent and very close to a lot of individuals. And I know that this is going to have a positive impact. And I thank you so much for sharing with us, sharing your own personal journey and your expertise. Thank you so much, Joshua.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And again, congratulations on number 100.
Thank you so much. You also have a book. Tell us a little bit about that and where we can find your book.
Well, I've actually written 4 books,
Mm,
and the two best ones for people. One is for the porn addicts. That book is called "He's a Porn Addict Now What?" Or no, excuse me. That book is called "I'm reading this book about porn addiction for a friend," and that is available on Amazon. I have a book for partners called "He's a Porn Addict Now What?" That's also available on Amazon. You can also get it through my website. Um, and they're available in electronic as well as hard copy.
awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, this has been fabulous. Reach out to Joshua if you have any questions. Grab his book. I'm sure it's going to help you, or book in a session with him to really get any support and help that you need. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your comments. Leave your comments below wherever you're watching on YouTube or any podcast platform. Let me know if there was an aha moment from this episode, or are you struggling with porn addiction? Let us know if you recovered from porn addiction. I also want to hear from you as well. And as always, remember, take care and bye for now. And I will see you in the new year, as this is the 100th episode. And I'm going to be on a little bit of break before the new year comes in, but I'll see you in 2024. Take care. Bye for now.